Bum, bum. Okay, there it is. Who was it? Oh no, that was Blue Harvest. Okay. I knew somebody had mentioned they had a question they had wanted to ask. And we're coming up on the live stream. Yay. I love it when technology works. We'll be starting officially in about 5 minutes, but I wanted to give everybody a chance to get notified. And people who are, people have the notification turned on YouTube, or they can get notified and get joined in. How's everybody doing? Everybody ready for Memorial Day?
I'm doing good, yeah.
Doing good.
Christopher, how you doing good too, Christopher? Wasn't sure if that
Yeah,
was you.
yeah, it's me. It's Christopher.
Okay, cool. Cool. Glad you could join. Looks like I've still waiting for people to join on the live streams, but that's fine. That's wonderful. So yeah. Okay, there's that. Cool. Bring the chat up.
Because if it's going up.
Hey, Paul, how's the whole radio business working out? Are you getting a good amount of viewers or listeners, I should say?
I don't know. I don't actually get stats for like another month or so. But it actually takes. Actually, no, I should be getting some soon. It takes about a month for they actually get stats from the different networks, and it takes a couple months to see how they're going. I did pick up my first sponsor, so that's cool. You'll start hearing me doing or talking next week about Healthy Cell.
Yeah, you talked about it today, actually.
Yep. Oh, that's right. It is. Yeah, today. I'm generally I try to record a day or two ahead of time, just so that the people on the network they take my recordings. They've got to edit them and prep them, and I want to give them a little bit of time to do that. But yeah, it's and actually they sent me some. I've been using it. Yeah, I kind of like it. It's nice to have a sponsor. I've kind of got into a nice groove with the program, getting stuff up there. There's Andy. Hello, Andy. Andy's muted.
Hey, it's Andy.
Does he know?
He wasn't here last time. Just need one more. I think it's Sean, and we'll have the A team.
So I'm going to talk about this on the program, but where is everybody physically? I mean, what states are you in?
I'm in Idaho.
I know. Yeah, Tunnel Lord's in Idaho.
I'm in Illinois.
You're in Illinois.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay. Because I got my Knowing Your Rights tour. In fact, looking at my routes, I'm going to be in North Dakota the middle of August. I'm going to be in Missouri the end of August. I'm going to be in Wyoming middle of August. So yeah, Christopher, depending, I can head up. There's a couple ways I can get to where I'm going in Grand Forks, North Dakota. I might go through Illinois. I might not. If I've got a good reason, let me rephrase it. If I've got a good reason to go through Illinois, I'll go through Illinois. If not, I'll probably avoid it. There's a reason why when I used to drive from New York down here to Tennessee, I took the Western route. So I avoided New Jersey, and I only had this itty bitty piece of Maryland that I actually had to drive through. So. All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour. Hello there, everyday Americans. Actually, do I have people on the live stream yet? No, I'm not seeing anybody registered. But then again, I never trust this stuff. the live stream tells me I've got I got one person on there, and then I've got 3 different people asking questions. So in any case, welcome everyday Americans. Welcome to the Constitution Study Live. This is the live Q&A. If you have a question, I've got several people here live in the Zoom room. If you want to learn out how to join me in the Zoom room so you can actually talk to me, ask questions live, that information is on the website, constitutionstudy.com. If you want to ask a question, simply type it into the chat, into the comment section. I will keep track of those, and I will try to answer those as best I can. This time is basically for us just to get together and question and answer. That's the primary driver, although I do try to bring something to the table. Now, Andy, I was going to ask you this beforehand. Were you the one that had the Pennsylvania question? So Andy is one of our scholars. He's a member at the Constitution Scholars. You can join for free at constitutionscholars.com. There's my plug. And he wanted to bring up a topic. And Andy, do you want to introduce the topic you want to talk about today?
Sure. We just had a vote, I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was amendments to the Pennsylvania Constitution. And one of the amendments was restricting government orders on emergencies, basically.
Yeah, you actually decided, if memory serves, I found this. Where did it go? I know I had there it is. I had the link for the story. For those of you who don't know, I have another website called Constitution Scholars for people that are looking to read and study the Constitution, become better students themselves, learn how to study for themselves, and as well as how to teach others. And one of the things I like to do is, as I'm perusing the news, I'll post stuff. Usually I'll flag stuff, and then in the morning I will post it in the different state groups for the scholars as kind of fodder, something to chew on, something to think about. One I did was a story talking about the Pennsylvania, and by the way, Pennsylvania apparently is the first in the country state to actually put a limit on a governor's power during a pandemic. So that's, I like that. Can you tell us a little more about the actual legislation, Andy, or have you researched it much?
I can't quote off the top of my head. I'm trying to pull it up on my desktop in the background. Something about he could basically extend it indefinitely. Like there was no limit on that. And I thought that this amendment was a great way for the citizens of the state to have basically a balance of power on that.
Right. I guess the first question on the ballot was, shall the Pennsylvania Constitution be amended to change existing law and increase the power of the General Assembly to unilaterally terminate or extend a disaster emergency declaration and the powers of the Commonwealth agencies to address the disaster regardless of its severity pursuant to that declaration? So basically the idea being the governor can still declare an emergency, but his order that emergency can either be extended or terminated based on a vote in the General Assembly. So I mean, I think I like that. Well, first of all, here's a couple of things I like. One is you're talking about, like you said, balance of power. The idea that you separate powers. Whenever we put too much power into one position, one office, one organization, that's dangerous. As you know, your governor what's your governor's name? Wolf? Yeah, Governor Wolf has shown. Where he declared an emergency and just kept extending. It's good to have a check and balance upon that power. I'm not familiar with the process. I'm assuming this is something that the General Assembly put as a vote to the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we voted on it, and I believe they're going to push through legislation. They're expecting it to be June, maybe. And, has to go through the process of approval, basically. And funny enough, the Thursday after that vote, he extended it again.
Well, he's not going to go down without a fight, right? Nobody likes to give up power. Let's see what else is on there. Proposed amendments to the Constitution. Okay, and they don't always make it the easiest thing to do. What is this? 4 ballot questions including 3 constitutional amendments will appear on the May 18th municipal primary ballot. But again, it's written in legalese, so yeah, the municipal fire departments. I don't think that was much of an issue. What was the other one?
I forget what I know 3 of them. I don't know if 2 of them were hand in hand. I know the third one was you can't be judged based on your race or ethnicity,
Okay.
or something along those terms. I'm sorry, I'm pulling out of my head here.
Well, that's fine. The thing, like I said, the thing I like, it's a revocation of power, which life is good. We like this. It was the people of the Commonwealth. It's an interesting conundrum. Since the COVID scare has been upon us, I think more and more people that simply trusted government to do the right things are learning that people in government don't always do the right thing. So this is a chance for the people to have a say. So yep, Pennsylvania did very well, which I guess it will help make up for the mess you guys made and how you appointed your presidential electors. That's been a topic of conversation on the radio program lately, and all that. So, but that's good. Now, any other interesting things going on in Pennsylvania since I got you on the screen?
That was my top thing I could think of. I think there was actually something else with the General Assembly that I think someone stepped down recently due to trafficking issues, that there was a little bit of a slip up and not a great thing. So I think that's something they want to add to the Constitution.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I have worked with some people up in Pennsylvania, mostly, like I said, around the 2020 election fiasco and some others. I actually worked. There was a person in Pennsylvania I used to work with a lot on talking about educating people about knowing their rights and stuff like that. So it's good to see. Philadelphia was the capital of the colonial meetings. The Constitution Convention happened there. It's good to see some freedom returning to that. Excellent. What I got Papa Res 1. Do you think we could separate into another original version of our country based on the original Constitution? We have completely lost our rights and been under paramilitary law since the Patriot Act in 2001. Well, here's the thing. And Papa, I hear variations of this quite a bit. We still live under the original Constitution. The problem is not that it's been superseded, it's that it's been ignored. Now, you've mentioned the Patriot Act. I like to say, when it comes to political parties, a pox on both their houses. The Republicans are just as willing to infringe on our rights as the Democrats. They just do it for different reasons. Now, why is this important? Well, when we look at the Patriot Act, I want to find a couple quotes, because one, I want to quote them, but two, I want to show them to you. There's a couple of very important quotes we need to remember. The first comes from Alexander Hamilton. I use this quote all the time. It comes from Federalist Papers number 78. There's that. In fact, let me blow that up so people will be able to see it. Where'd it go? I had it here a second ago. There we are. It just scrolled too far. There we go. Bingo. The other one, I'm going to quote from an article that I wrote. So I'm getting these set up so I can talk about them and I can switch them back and forth I should make a bookmark to this. I use this thing all the time, and if I were smart, I'd have a bookmark to it already. But you know, what are you going to do? Marbury. Okay, so the first thing we need to remember. Actually, while I'm thinking of that, let's do this. Let me throw up another one here, and that is the good old-fashioned Bill of Rights. So, okay. Everyone's probably familiar here with the 10th Amendment. I'm assuming pretty much everybody that's interested in the Constitution is familiar with the 10th Amendment, which says that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Right? So any power not delegated to the United States is not valid for it to exercise, right? It either is a state power, or if it's specifically prohibited to the states, it's a power held by the people. That is so this idea, we have this actually warped and twisted idea of these overlapping, they're called overlapping, the Supreme Court has a term for jurisdictions. There we go, overlapping jurisdictions, overlapping sovereigns. So the idea is you have a sovereign state government and you have a sovereign federal government, and there are places where they overlap. Except the 10th Amendment says, no, there is no place where they overlap. Either the power is delegated to the federal government, meaning the federal government can exercise that power, or it's reserved to the states, in which case the states exercise the power, not the federal government. So this idea of overlapping sovereigns is wrong, right? It misses the basics of the Constitution, which is where we get into the court theory of dual sovereignty, so that you can be effectively, the Fifth Amendment says you cannot be held, you cannot be tried twice for the same crime. Except the courts have said, well, yes, because if you're charged in state court, you can then be charged in federal court because they're separate sovereigns, and that's baloney. That's legal mumbo jumbo to get around a plain and simple fact that the federal government is exercising powers it's not legally authorized to, right? Now, the next part we need to look at is what's called the Supremacy Clause. And let me share this one, because this one, let me get this here. Let me make it a little large so everybody can read it. And where did the, whoops, yep, there we go. And we're going to share Safari. Okay. So that's Article 4. I need Article 6. Clause 2 is known as the Supremacy Clause. It says, this Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof. That is the extremely important point. Not all laws of the United States are supreme. Only those made in pursuance to the Constitution. So we have the first issue. We have these separate sovereignties, right? They do not overlap. They're not dual. They are separate. A power is either a federal power or a state power or a personal power, a people power. So if a law of the United States is exercising a power of the state government, or just plain violates the Constitution of the United States, it is not sovereign because it was not made in pursuance of the Constitution. Pursuance doesn't just mean we followed the process. It means you followed all of the process. So what does this have to do with things like the Patriot Act? Well, actually it has to do with a lot of legislation. In fact, I had this argument with somebody online just a few days ago. Something like 90% of the executive agencies are illegal. They're not pursuant, the legislation that created them is not pursuant to the Constitution. Therefore, it's not the supreme law. It's actually forbidden by the Constitution. So we read this. This is Alexander Hamilton in Federalist Papers number 78. He says, there is no position which depends on clearer principle than that every act of a delegated authority contrary to the tenor of the commission under which it is exercised is void. Right? Let's stop it there for a second. Every power given to government, to any government, is a delegated power. Right? Remember our Declaration of Independence, that to protect these rights, governments are instituted among men, exercising their just powers of the consent of the governed. Our consent is the Constitution that forms these governments. So when a power is delegated to the government, it's done so under a commission, right? We're familiar with like commissioning officers in the military or commissioning elected offices. We have a commission, something that, what is a commission? Creates something. We have a commission that created the federal government, that it has been delegated certain authorities. So if a act of a delegated authority contrary to the tenor of its commission is exercised, it's void. So when the federal government does something that is not specifically a power delegated in the US Constitution, it is void. It's not because the Supreme Court says so, not because the president said so. It simply is void. And it's like the president who has, or the emperor has no clothes, right? They are, these illegal acts are void, but nobody realizes it. Everyone thinks, everyone's been indoctrinated with this idea that whatever the Congress does is legal. That's not true. Hamilton goes on, no legislative act, therefore, contrary to the Constitution, can be valid. So when you look at the Patriot Act, when you look at searching people's records without a warrant or with an illegitimate warrant, right? What's the requirement for a warrant? It must be based on probable cause. It must be supported by oath or affirmation. It must specifically detail what is to be searched and what or whom is to be seized. So for to simply say, we're going to scarf up data because we want to go looking for stuff, that can only be done either outside of a warrant or under a general warrant, which is why we have the Fourth Amendment, because general warrants are evil. The British used them against us. They used to say, go find some contraband and then fill in the warrant. They're called writs of assistance. You do a little research, you can find. So, and just imagine, there's a knock on your door, and a troop of soldiers comes and says, "We're here to search for contraband. Where's your warrant?" "We don't have one. It isn't filled out yet. When we search your place, when we find the contraband, then we'll fill in the warrant." So you have all of these acts that are illegal. Right? They're a violation of the Fourth Amendment, and according to Alexander Hamilton, they cannot be valid. They are void. And listen to something. I love this language. I use this all the time. To deny the idea that legislative acts contrary to the Constitution are void, that they're not valid, that governments can only do what their delegated power is. To deny this would affirm that the deputy is greater than his principal, that the servant is above his master, that the representatives of the people are superior to the people themselves. The very idea that Congress can do whatever it can pass inverts the process so much that it's like you hiring a butler and the butler telling you what to do. It's like you hiring a cleaning service and the cleaning service telling you what to do. It's inverted. The very idea that the representatives of the people are superior to the people is itself contrary to the basic concept of the Constitution. I have this little daydream. Every so often you just kind of kick back and you daydream. I picture this. Picture me being called into some congressional meeting. Maybe I get called up to the state, up to Nashville, because I tend to gripe on some of the stuff that they do. And they let's say that the legislature in Nashville wants to meet with me. I wouldn't even say it. So I go up and I sit there and I'm polite. And someone gets cranky because I refuse to refer to them as your honorable or the honorable. Excuse me, you've shown me you're not honorable. Why should I give you a title you're not entitled to? Then I just kind of want to kick back, put my feet up, and listen to the nonsense until I finally point out, says, you do realize, you guys, that you work for the people, not the other way around. We are not your servants. We are your bosses. We don't have to justify ourselves to you. You have to justify yourselves to us. That's the attitude that we're talking about. So let me go back to this. That men acting by virtue of powers may do not only what their powers do not authorize, but what they forbid. This is the crux of an out of control federal government. Right? There are all of these restrictions on government that we, the people, are not using. When was the last time you got a campaign flyer from your representative explaining how their positions were all constitutional? In fact, when was the last time you contacted your representative and said, wait a second, the Constitution says this is wrong. This is a violation of the Constitution. Therefore, this would be void. Why are you doing it? When was the last time you got an answer to that wasn't a form letter? When was the last time you fired a representative because they refused to follow their oath of office? We have the Patriot Act. We have the Affordable Care Act. We have a Department of Energy and a Department of Agriculture and an EPA and a Department of Transportation, and on and on and on and on, even though it is not by our consent, because we did not hold our elected officials accountable. We never punished them the first few times they did it. And like any child, if they get away with it one time, they'll try it again and again and again and again. And yes, I just called pretty much everybody who's ever served in Congress a child. They are. So we look at the Patriot Act, and the problem is we look at this and realize the Patriot Act, or at least parts of the Patriot Act, I won't say the whole thing, parts of the Patriot Act are void. Now, we still have people enforcing them, but that's because they're not, we the people don't punish them when they commit these wrongs. When they sign the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin said, we must all hang together, or assuredly we will hang separately. When we onesie, twosie, threesies go up and say, no, this is wrong, this is a violation of your oath, this is a violation of the Constitution, you are an easy target. But when a group of people are willing to stand up and say, no, this is wrong. I don't care what you call me. I don't care if you call me an insurrectionist, simply for showing up and peacefully protesting a corrupted presidential election. By the way, YouTube's probably I'm waiting for YouTube to block me for this, but too bad. Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan all illegally changed the manner of appointing presidential electors. It was not done by the legislature. It is a violation of the Constitution. Those electors were illegally appointed. That's a corrupt presidential election. Now, here's the interesting thing. There is no way to know what would have happened, what the outcome of the election would have been if the courts had left well enough alone and we'd actually followed the law. There is no way to know. Here's what I do know. If the illegally appointed electors had not voted, in other words, if the votes from Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan were not counted because they were illegally appointed, guess who would be president? Joe Biden. He still would have won. Oh, well. By the way, you have all that rigmarole going on in Arizona. If Arizona's electoral presidential electors were not counted, Biden still would have won. By one electoral vote, he still would have won. That doesn't mean it's right. And you know what? They're going to call people names. And there are people sitting in jail for challenging, for asking for an investigation into a corrupt election. What's your liberty worth? Now, I don't expect every American to be willing to stand up and go to jail. But will we support the people who are in jail? Will we support their families? Will we support their legal funds? Will we provide whatever assistance we can? Because what they were doing was challenging the illegal acts of several of the states. We really have to get to the point of saying, you know what, I'm willing to stand up. And if I'm not willing to stand up for that, I'm willing to support the people who are. Now, I get this all the time. I'm going to pull a quote because everyone says, well, you know, that's Alexander Hamilton. That's the Federalist Papers. That's not law. You're right. That isn't law. But here's a little line from a nice little case I like. Okay. Quote, thus, the particular phraseology of the Constitution of the United States confirms and strengthens the principle, supposed to be essential to all written constitutions, that a law repugnant to the Constitution is void, and that courts, as well as other departments, are bound by that instrument. Do you know who said that? Chief Justice Marshall of the Supreme Court of the United States. Chief Justice of the United States in a Supreme Court case that most people have heard about, Marbury versus Madison, at least I hope most people have heard about, said that a law repugnant to the Constitution is void. So let's think about this for just a second. Let me stop my sharing for a second. Let me look at me. If Alexander Hamilton says these are void, if the Supreme Court says these are void, then if we disregard these laws, are we being disobedient? No. We are being obedient to the supreme law of the land. Now, again, if you stand up in front of a federal officer and say, sorry, sir, you have no legal authority for that, chances are, if you're standing alone, you're going to jail. I seem to remember about 56 guys signing a document in which they pledged to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. What will we pledge? Memorial Day is coming up. I just posted a video for Memorial Day, so it'll post next Monday, this coming Monday. I encourage you to watch it, and I encourage you to think about it, because I asked that question. Men and women have given their lives so that we can live free. What would you give, not simply to honor their lives, but to honor what they were sacrificing for? That's a little preview of what's coming up for Memorial Day. What will we give? Will we stand up? Will we give anything? And again, I don't expect everybody to stand up and fight for each and every infringement of the Constitution. The point is, if it's something you're passionate enough to stand up for, who else will stand with you? When we were talking before the hour started, when Pennsylvania had their mess in selecting presidential electors, I offered to help. I talked with people, people that were engaged. I offered to come up to I offered to come up to Pennsylvania and meet with members of the General Assembly and explain to them what the Constitution says about this process and give them advice on what they can do to fix the problem. I wasn't going to, I don't live in Pennsylvania. I have no say in how Pennsylvania does things, but I was willing to help. when we see people that are standing up, whether it's the gym owners in New Jersey bashing down the boards because the state illegally shut them down and boarded up their doors. When we see someone being arrested for wearing a mask, or we see a business being harassed by a government official because of a mask policy or a vaccine policy or whatever policy, do we simply turn? There was a video this past summer of a lady. There was two of them. I've talked about this before, but to me, this is quintessentially the issue. You have a lady in Texas at an outdoor, I think it was a football game. It was an outdoor game watching her son. Her and her mother, no mask, but they're separated from everybody. Danger to no one. Outdoors, fine. You have, I believe it was a restaurant in Buffalo, New York. Now, in both cases, law enforcement showed up. Now, in Texas, a guy with a badge tried to arrest this lady. She refused. By the way, I've got an article coming out shortly talking about your legal right to resist an unlawful arrest. Found that little article. Yeah. The courts have actually said you have a right to resist an unlawful arrest. And in fact, in one of the cases, a murder conviction was overturned because you have a right to defend yourself against an illegal arrest, including if they're using force and threatening severe bodily harm, you have a right to defend yourself with lethal force against law enforcement, at least according to the courts, at least some of the courts. But back to what I was saying. So this guy shows up, she refuses, he tases her, handcuffs her, and drags her away kicking and screaming. And the video shows other people sitting around, and with the exception, the person recording the video said, gee, I wonder if he's a real cop. But most everybody else was looking away in shame. Now, I don't know if they actually felt shame, but they were shameful. They saw someone being illegally arrested, assaulted, and they did nothing. Now, the bar in Buffalo, health department inspector comes in with two sheriff's deputies. The owner, I believe it was the owner, says, no, leave here. You're not invited. Where's your warrant? No warrant? Go. You're not interested. You're trespassing. He stands. He says, no, you're not allowed in here. You're not wanted here. You're trespassing. Leave. At one point, one of the deputies looks at him and says, sir, we're just trying to do our job. And he says, no, if you're doing your job, you'd be escorting this trespasser off of my property. You do not have a warrant. Go. What happened was the other people in the restaurant stood up and said, no, go. You're not wanted. You have no legal authority here. This is an illegal search. This is an illegal, you are trespassing. Leave. He was not standing alone. The lady in Texas stood alone and got dragged away in cuffs. He stood with his patrons. His patrons were behind him. And the law enforcement officers and the health inspector left. We must all stand together. We must all hang together, or we will all surely hang separately. So I hope, Perez, I hope you explain it. It's not martial law. It is an illegal law that we all just kind of turn around and act like it's real, even though it isn't. And it's partially because of our ignorance and the ignorance of the vast majority of the American people. But the other is we're afraid. It was, I believe, Jefferson who said, when the government is afraid of the people, there's liberty. When the people are afraid of the government, that is tyranny. We are afraid of our government because our government does not abide by the limitations we've placed on it. And we're afraid that if we stand up, we're going to get knocked down. I understand that. The question is, bravery is not the absence of fear. It's the willingness to do what needs to be done in the face of fear. And I repeat this, I'm going to say it over and over again. I don't expect everybody to stand up for everything, but we need to start protecting the rights of our neighbors, and we need to start locally. It needs to begin in your family. It needs to begin in your neighborhood. It needs to begin in your county. When your neighbors are willing to protect your rights because you're willing to protect theirs. When your sheriff is willing to protect your rights, then you've got some backup. Does that mean you're not going to jail? Well, not necessarily, but you're less likely to. And that's what makes the difference. All right, let's see, Florida man, how would I rank? Hang on a second on Florida man. Let's see, Papa Rez is up here. I agree the problem is now enforcing the law. Well, you're right, Papa Rez. We have to enforce the law. The biggest frustration is we keep looking for someone else to do our job for us. I'm going to get on another soapbox. If you're looking for an elected official to fix this problem, I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. I have waterfront property in Nevada to sell you. If you believe an elected official is going to fix this problem. In fact, I had this debate with somebody not that long ago. If you think a convention of the states is going to fix this problem, I'm sorry, no. If you think term limits are going to fix this problem, no. Because the problem, for the most part, is not the Constitution, and it's not how long people sit in office. It's the fact that we keep electing the same idiots or people just like them to exercise our sovereign power. And when they act like utter buffoons, we don't hold them accountable for it. Again, when was the last time? Let's put Washington aside for a minute. When was the last time you met with your elected county, whatever they call them, right? Your county board member, and asked them and talked with them and said, well, wait a second, why did you vote for this? Explain to me what you were doing here. Explain to me the authority in the county charter that gives you the authority. Show me where, please. Questions. Don't go aggressive, right? If you show up all bowed up and ready to fight, they'll bow up and you're going to end up nowhere. But to sit with your county officials and with your state officials and say, your state representatives, and say, can you explain this to me? Because why are you supporting this legislation that seems so grossly unconstitutional? And if the answers come back anything other than, well, maybe they have a point. Give them the chance. Maybe they've got a point. Does it pass constitutional muster? Explain to them. Wait a second. You took an oath. You swore or affirmed to support the Constitution of the United States, and in most cases, the Constitution of the state you're residing in. Are you telling me you're going to ignore that oath to support this legislation? Why should I if I can't trust you to follow an oath, if you put your hand on the Bible and raise your right hand and swore or affirmed you're going to do this and you won't, if I can't trust you to do that, how can I trust anything you tell me about this legislation? And if I can't trust you, how can I vote for you? And if I can't trust you and I give a rip about my neighbors, how can I do anything but show them the hypocrite that you are? The lying, oath-breaking hypocrite that you are. And then do it. The problem is not them. They are the symptom. The problem is we don't know what 95% of Americans have no clue what the Constitution says. And I'm being generous at 95%. And the few that do, it's like, when was the last time you stood up and said, sorry, no? When was the last time you looked at, I tell this story all the time. When the mask mandates were first rolling out, a neighboring county, I had an event I was going to in a neighboring county. That county, literally just a few days before the event, passed a mask mandate. I showed up. The coordinator came over and said, well, you know, we're probably okay. We're on private property. I don't care. That mask mandate's illegal. What? And I showed her, I have these printed out. It's called I call it my knowing your rights. Said, nope, so you're depriving me of my liberty without due process of law. I have a business. You're attempting to deprive me of my business without due process of law. That's not only a violation of the Constitution, doing so under color of law is a crime. So if the law enforcement, if the police show up and they try to make me wear a mask, they try to shut me down for not wearing a mask, my first call will be to my lawyer, my second call will be to the FBI to file a complaint because I want them charged with a violation of federal law, 18 U.S.C. 242. By the way, there's a copy on that. You can find that on the website, constitutionsociety.com. Just search for knowing your rights. When was the last time someone stood and said, no, I refuse. You have no legal authority to make me do that. And I have the law on my side and I can prove it. Now, I did not have to do that day. No police showed up. Police went by once and I kept my eye out. But I was prepared. As John Jay said, you know, if you read, everybody should read and study the Constitution of the country, teach the rights and generation to be free. By knowing their rights, they'll sooner perceive when they are violated and be the better prepared to defend and assert them. We need to do that. We need to stop looking for someone else to help us live as free people. We live as free people and then require others to follow the law. And that's part of, and you're right, you know, educating the people to understand and care. Absolutely. That is why this summer I have what it's called my Knowing Your, I'll throw the plug in here. I'm doing what I call the Knowing Your Rights Tour. I am traveling the country, speaking and talking and teaching about understanding your rights and how to exercise, how to defend and assert them. And this started, I'm kind of interesting timing wise because I started this class, for lack of a better term, with all the mask mandates, but it's just as important with the vaccine mandates to say, do you understand what your rights are? Do you understand that, you know, the Fourth Amendment says the Fourth Amendment doesn't say the government cannot, you know, can't look at any of your stuff unless, you know, you don't keep it private. Doesn't say that. Federal government, the Fourth Amendment says they cannot search unless it's reasonable. How's it reasonable? Well, either there's got to be a warrant based on probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, or there's got to be what's called the exigent circumstance, meaning if they see you commit a crime, they can come and search you. Right? If they see you shoplifting, they can search you for that product. Right? But you know, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, you cannot be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. We all pretty much sure what life is, but you'd be surprised how many people have no clue what the legal definition of liberty is, what the definition of property is. Do you know that if you own a business, that business is your property? Not just the building it's in, not just the land you may have, the business itself is a property. So when the government says your business is not essential, you shut down, they've deprived you of your property without due process of law. Right? I talk about the Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and I mentioned federal law. That is a federal crime. I'm pushing big on this lately because it is a federal crime for someone under color of law to deprive you of a right protected by the U.S. Constitution. So when law enforcement, when code enforcement, when the health department violates those protections under the Constitution, they are committing a federal crime. Right? We need to start filing complaints. Don't just sue them for money. File a criminal complaint, because if you sue them for money, the government pays for it. If you get them charged with a crime, they have to defend themselves in court. The individual pays the price. If your Papa Rez, if your representative doesn't take your calls anymore, two things. One is you can show up at their office, but two, let them know that is a violation of the trust. They are your employee. If the employee won't take the calls of the employer, they should be utterly disqualified. And and again, not just you. This needs to be if they are that disrespectful to the people they work for, that needs to be known everywhere. That is not something you grouse about in your living room or at the kitchen table. That is something you go, every business you talk to in that district, every business owner, every place you go, you let them know that person won't even listen to the people they work for. How can you represent somebody if you won't listen to them? They haven't technically violated their oath to support the Constitution. They violated the trust. They are exercising your power in your name. If they won't listen to you, that should be grounds for automatic dismissal. There should be no, that should make them, they should be not legally disqualified. There should be no way someone should vote for them. That's like having somebody who's a convicted child molester and axe murderer applying for a job at a daycare. It should be a no-brainer. But we don't think of it that way. We don't think of them as our employees. We think of them as our rulers, or as Alexander Hamilton, that they are superior to us. No. And they need to be reminded that frequently, repeatedly, and frequently, and enthusiastically. Okay, I've been ranting for a little while. We got any more questions pop up? I think I've been dealing with Papa Rez for a while. Hopefully, Papa Rez, hopefully I answer your questions. Hopefully I actually got you a little fired up too, to look at this and say, wait a second, well, let me take another part to this. What are you doing to let other people know just how unqualified for the office your representative is? And I don't mean unqualified. I mean how disrespectfully he is treating his employers. And then two, well, what are you doing to help educate people to understand the Constitution? Now I didn't care about the Constitution until I actually read it, until I actually realized how much I had not been taught and how much what I had been taught was a lie. So Papa Rez, I don't know where you are, but like I said, I got my Knowing Your Rights tour. Go to constitutionsociety.com/tour, TOUR. If I'm anywhere near you, encourage people to come. If I'm not close to you, but I'm gonna be somewhere, there's a form right in the bottom that says, come speak to us. If I can put it in the schedule, I will do it. Papa Rez, you're in North Carolina. Okay, so right now I'm gonna be in North Dakota, Wyoming, Missouri, right? I live in Middle Tennessee. That's not that far from North Carolina. Can we get something? Can we get North Carolina, maybe a couple of other locations, and put 2, 3, if we can put 2, 3, 4 events, I'll come in and I'll speak. I show up, I've got my material I speak with, I have books for sale and other stuff that for people that are interested. Let's make something happen. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Let's see if we can make a tour through there. I've got one through the Northern Plains. Let's see if we can get one through the Southeast. But I will be more than happy to help you educate people to care about the importance of the law, because you're right. It's the importance of the law, and it's partially just understanding. Most people have no clue of the power they actually have. So that's my soapbox. So yeah, be in touch. Again, constitutionstudy.com/tour will show you where my tour events are, give you some information about what I'm speaking at. It'll show you each and every one of my stops. In fact, one lady in Grand Forks, North Dakota, I'm coming in, I'm doing a Knowing Your Rights tour that afternoon in Grand Forks. She set up a morning event with students. She's going to bring middle school and high school students in the morning, and I'm going to give them what I call my Constitution primer, kind of an abbreviated version, for a couple hours in the morning. Then we have a social hour where people can show up and just chat and talk and be pleasant. And then we're doing the Knowing Your Rights event that evening, right? This doesn't just have to be Paul getting up and standing in front of a bunch of people. We can do just about anything we can make, within reason, we can make happen. So let's be a little creative. Like I said, I'm going to be in Missouri. That's speaking as part of a larger event. Someone else has got a, what are they calling it? Not Freedom Fest, Faith and Freedom in where is it? Jenkins, Missouri, something like that. It's on the website, and I'm one of the speakers there. So let's see what we can do. Okay, any more questions? I don't see any more questions.
I do.
Oh, go ahead, Tunnel Lord. I figured you would.
Yeah. Okay. So, what I'm curious is today we have 9 Supreme Court justices, and the only reason why that is the case today is because people treat the Supreme Court justices' opinions as law, and they want a bunch of their own justices in there so they get their own the answer they want. Now, what I'm curious is how many Supreme Court justices did we have at the very start of this country, and when did that whole idea of adding on to them become a thing? Because there's no point in adding to that whole court when their opinions are not law and just mere opinion, you know? Well,
yeah, originally there were 6. So in 1788, when George Washington was inaugurated president, he appointed 6 justices to the Supreme Court. So you had the Chief Justice of the United States, John by the name of John Jay, and you had 5 other associate justices of the Supreme Court. Now, it went from between 6 and 10 until I think it was about the 1870s. I'm not sure exactly when. They kind of settled down on 9. It's 9. One, we want an odd number so we don't have too many ties. But they said 9 is a good number. And originally, these 9 justices actually toured the country. You know why we have 9 circuit courts? Because each justice is responsible for a circuit. They used to actually ride a circuit. They used to actually go out and were judges in through the country, and then they'd come back and they'd deal, so they were circuit judges. They rode a circuit. And at some point they'd ride the circuit, and then they come back to Washington and they deal with the Supreme Court issues, because not everything was a federal case. Not everything was dealt with by the Supreme Court, yada, yada, yada. So it's real interesting. That's why you've got the Court of Appeals and then the circuit courts, because the circuit courts were run by a justice of the Supreme Court. But here's the other thing. Packing the court. In other words, threatening to add justices to a court because you're unhappy with their opinions is nothing new. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt was trying to get his New Deal through, he was getting legislation passed because he was a very popular president. The Democrats controlled Congress. He could run anything he wanted through there. And the Supreme Court kept saying, no, you don't have the constitutional authority to do that. So FDR said, well, then I guess I'll just have to pick a bunch more justices. I'll just have to pack the courts and get my people in there who will say what I want to do is okay. Kind of proves that the Supreme Court is not apolitical. It always has been political. Even the Democrats said, no, that's a step too far. We couldn't possibly do that. That's just a tyrant throwing their weight around. Yet the court folded anyway. See, the court kept saying, you know what? All right, we'll back off. We'll give you some of your stuff. Just don't pack us. They caved like a cheap suit. They folded like a cheap suit. Now what do we have? We have the Democrats in Congress threatening to pack the court if the court actually finds in a Mississippi abortion case in a way they don't like. You have Democrats in Congress blackmailing another branch of the government. Tell me why, this is the question I want to understand. Why are these so-called conservative, so-called constitutional congressmen not filing articles of impeachment against each and every congressperson who is threatening to pack the court if they don't get the outcome they want? That is extortion, that is blackmail, that is bribery, all valid reasons to impeach a member of Congress. Now, you don't have to impeach a member of Congress. They can actually be removed simply by a 2/3, I think it's 2/3 vote of their own House. But since the odds of Speaker Pelosi having a vote to remove a Democrat from office is about this, it has about the possibility of a snowball fight on the sun. How about they just file? I don't care. File it. Here you go. It's going nowhere. I don't care. File it. I want the record to show that you know, at least I've been asked in the past why I don't run for Congress, because right now I don't have the stomach for it. I will not run. I will not beg people for votes. If I'm drafted, I will go, and I will spend most of my time filing articles of impeachment. I will not vote for legislation that is not 100% constitutional. So I'm basically, my vote for everything is no until you first prove you have the constitutional authority to do it. And I'm going to spend all day filing impeachment articles. I don't care if they don't go anywhere. My job is not to make the politicians happy. My job would be to represent the people of my district, and my platform, the sole plank in my platform is the Constitution of the United States of America. So tell me, all of these, you know, I don't pick Ted Cruz, Hollings, whoever. All these things are supposed to be great constitutional people. Why are they not filing articles of impeachment against these people? If Mitch McConnell is the great hope for conservatism and the Constitution of the Senate, why is he not filing articles of impeachment against Chuck Schumer and any senator who is supporting the intimidation and extortion of another branch of government? I don't care about a pox on both of your houses. You are lying, unless although proven otherwise, I assume you're lying through your teeth. So much for all these constitutional heavyweights in Congress. Oh, sorry, Florida man. Thank you for reminding me. You did ask me to rank each justice on the Supreme Court. Well, okay. Pretty much, here, let me do this. Because I'm going to base this on how I have reviewed their opinions. So let's start with Chief Justice Roberts. Chief Justice Roberts he is somewhere between a spineless buffoon and just a finger licker. He is more politician than some congressman. He waffles, he wavers, he does not hold the Constitution well. Yeah, I have, he has been an utter disappointment. I'm going to do this based by seniority. All right, so let's do this based on seniority. Justice Thomas. Justice Thomas is pretty good. I like most of his opinions. He actually writes fairly well. I like the way he the way he describes his position sometimes. He's very good at that. The one real ding I have against Justice Thomas is he gives too much deference to law enforcement. In other words, he kind of forgets that law enforcement is a government agent. And rather than being, it's one of those when in doubt, pretty much assume he's going to approve whatever law enforcement does, unless it's really beyond the pale. So he's pretty good. But I always, when it comes to, and a perfect example, his recent position on big tech and the desire to how do they rein in big tech, completely ignoring the fact that the Constitution does not give the federal government the authority to break up big tech companies or regulate big tech. Doesn't, right? But that's neither here nor there. Stephen Breyer. Well, let's see. There's a group. I don't want to be mean, but I pretty much figure if I see Stephen Breyer's opinion, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be on the other side. 80% of the time. 80% of the time, he's going to let government do whatever they want to do. The Constitution is merely a roadblock to making that happen. Let's see. Then we got Samuel Alito. Samuel Alito to me is a C student. I mean, he's pretty good, maybe a C plus. He's pretty good, but I wouldn't call him a stalwart originalist, much less a textualist, much less actually reading what the Constitution says. So he's kind of, to me, middle of the road. Sotomayor and Kagan both. Now they both are federal supremacists, judicial supremacists. They rarely judge on the law, they judge on the outcome. If you read their opinions, rarely does it deal with, well, the Constitution says, or the law says. It has to do with, well, is this right for the people? Is this wrong for the people? Well, if they wanted to make policy, they should have run for Congress. Their job there is not to write policy. Their job there is not to right wrongs. Their job there is to look at a case, review the laws related to that case, and offer an opinion on what should happen, right? So, yeah. Gorsuch. Right now, Gorsuch, I'd list him as my A student. A minus, B plus. He, to me, is so far has been the most reliable when it comes to the Constitution. Right? Not perfect. I disagreed with him on a couple of his opinions, but so far he has been, and he's only been on 3 years, 4 years now. So he's got a bit of a background to him. He's pretty good. I kind of miss Scalia because Scalia was very good and Scalia wrote very well. And I think Gorsuch is not quite Scalia, but he's trying to fill those shoes, and he does a pretty good job of it. So he's pretty good. Kavanaugh has been a mild disappointment. We had all this fight and all this hubbub, and yet I still see a judicial supremacist. I still see someone who cares more about what other judges say than the actual law. And Amy Coney Barrett is, I haven't come to a real definitive opinion about her because she's only been involved in a few cases. I think she's only written one opinion so far. And what she wrote was pretty good. So I have hopes for her, but she doesn't have enough of a track record yet for me to say thumbs up, thumbs down. But I laugh. I belly laugh when someone says we have a conservative court. We have 2, maybe 3 justices on the court that actually take care of what the Constitution says most of the time. We certainly do not have a 6-3 majority like the Democrats claim of conservatives. No, we have 6 appointed by Republicans. We have 3 appointed by Democrats, and we have we have at least 6 that are judicial activists in one form or another. And we have 2 that are fairly stalwart when it comes to the Constitution. We have 1 that we're still getting a history on. So thanks for reminding me, Florida man. That's my opinion. And again, that is based on my review of Supreme Court opinions. I don't care about what party voted them in. I don't care. I care mostly about how they opine, and that's been that. So let's see. Looks like we got some people on the live stream. I'm still looking for some questions, folks. If you've got questions, yeah, go ahead, tell the Lord.
It's not much of a question, but so just recently in Idaho, our governor is out of state, and within our Idaho Constitution, it says the lieutenant governor gets all the powers, and that because he's gone. And she did something really sly and like smooth, I guess you could say. She made an EO that bans all mask mandates while the opportunity was there. Mind you, EOs aren't law, but I still think it's really funny because she didn't waste any time. Yeah.
So the lieutenant governor banned mask mandates while the governor was out of town.
Yeah.
Okay. That, well, from a constitutional standpoint, again, I'm not familiar with the Constitution of Idaho. If the Constitution says when the governor's out of state, the lieutenant governor has that power, okay. Kind of makes me wonder what the working relationship is between the governor and the lieutenant governor.
Oh, it's good. It doesn't exist. They don't like each other at all.
Yeah. So this is, so do you expect? I mean, to me, it's kind of interesting since these are almost always done based on the party level. To have a governor and a lieutenant governor that are such at odds might make for an interesting governor's race next time around.
Actually, they're both Republican, except Governor Little is honestly he doesn't preserve liberty or advocate for the preservation of liberty like our lieutenant governor does. She's that way, and she's running for lieutenant governor. And I think what's honestly funny about this is if he comes back and he reinstates or makes that executive order kind of moot, it'll shoot him in the foot.
Yeah.
So I think that
with animosity, that it sounds like you said, it's a pretty slick move by the lieutenant governor. It puts her constitutional bona fides out there. It's like, hey, these are wrong, these are nuts. Here you go. No ifs, ands, or buts. Lays it right out there. But it's a challenge to the governor because, like I said, what does a governor do when they get back? Does he rescind that executive order? Oh, so you want to enforce mask mandate? You don't believe in freedom. You don't believe in liberty. Why don't you just give those talking points to your opponents? Wonderful. Or does he leave them and realize he's been outmaneuvered? I don't know.
He's got no option because out here in Idaho, people don't tolerate it at all. This is what happened through all 2020. They don't tolerate it, period. So yeah, if he does do that, he's done. He's done as a governor. Yeah. I can say that straight up. So
yeah, that's every once in a while you see someone make a nice political move, walk somebody into a trap and snap. So actually, before we go, there's a couple of things I do want to chat about. Florian says, help, Kavanaugh helped write the Patriot Act. There was a lot of lawyers that helped write the Patriot Act. I'm looking at the justices based on the opinions they've written, the concurrences, and the dissents that they've written or joined. And to me, Kavanaugh he's just kind of middle of the road, go along to get along. To me, he's not a person who stands up for the Constitution, the rights of the people, and liberty, unless it's easy. So I do want to mention something. I've started writing. You're going to start seeing stuff. I've started talking about it. I've got something going on. We are coming up on Memorial Day. As I've already said, this Memorial Day is a day we remember those who gave their lives so that we could live free. Now, We don't always agree with what they fought, with where they were sent to fight, but we're talking about men and women who served us, were willing to fight, and in these cases died defending the Constitution, preserving, protecting, defending the Constitution. And I think we should honor them, and I think we should honor what they died for. So between Memorial Day and Independence Day, I got a couple things going on. Anyone here who is not already a constitutional scholar, by the way, it is a free registration. You don't have to pay a dime. You never have to pay a dime to be a member of the Constitution Scholars. There are some for-fee memberships for advanced training, but if you just want to sign up, it is free. Go to Constitution Scholars, plural, constitutionscholars.com, register for free. Don't register yet. Everybody who registers from Memorial Day to Independence Day, I'm going to give you a $5 coupon to the store. Okay? So from new registrants from Memorial Day to Independence Day, once you register, give me a day or so, and I will email you a coupon for $5 off the store. Also, everybody who registers between Memorial Day and Independence Day is going into a raffle for a signed copy of my book, How to Read the Constitution in 30 Days. So if you register between Memorial Day and Independence Day, I'll take all those names, I'll pick one at random, I'll contact you for a mailing address, and I will send you a free copy of How to Read the Constitution in 30 Days. It's the great, if you've wanted to read the Constitution, if you know somebody that wants to read the Constitution, but just says, well, I don't have time, it's hard, it's real simple, I don't have a copy with me. It's a daily devotion, right? There you go. You open it up, you've got 2 pages, it takes about 2 minutes to read. You'll read the Declaration, there's a little highlight, you'll read the language, there's a little highlight, and then there's a short commentary by me. In 30 days, you've read the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. It is a great way to get started. So you'll get a signed copy. One of those people who register will get those. Now, we have Andy. Now, Andy's already a scholar, right? Hey, Andy. Andy's a scholar. As I've already talked about, one of the things we do with the scholars, there's a library of books you can read. There's videos. I'm working on some more classes up there. All my webinars go up there. So if you want to see some of the other stuff that I've done, all free, all up there. And I have a group for the U.S. Constitution. I have a group for each and every state. So join your state's group. And what you'll find is I'm posting stuff in there that I think is of interest to people who are interested in the Constitution of their state. Find other scholars that are interested. Start up discussion, start up debate. So here's what I'm going to do to help encourage discussion on the scholars. Everybody who creates a post on the scholars website, I don't mean a comment, I mean a new post. Every post is a raffle ticket for a signed copy of my book, The Constitution Study. So you don't put a post in there. I do ask that it says something, right? Don't just put up, hey, send me my free book, right? Ask a question. Pose a question for people to discuss. Point out some piece of legislation or some constitutional issue. Anywhere, any group, I don't care. I'm going to, come Independence Day, I'm going to take all of those posts and I'm going to pick one out at random, and that person's going to get a free copy signed of the Constitution Study. The Constitution Study, that is an in-depth clause by clause study of the entire Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. It is everything. And if you want to find out more details about the 3/5 clause or the third party principle, which I talk about in the section on the Fourth Amendment, it's in there. So I'm encouraging people to honor what those who sacrificed for. That is our rights, our freedoms, our liberty. It starts with education. Here's a way to get started and maybe get a little something back for that. So that's what I'm doing. Again, it's Memorial Day is the 31st, Independence Day is July 4th. That's the time to do that. All right. So that's what's going on. Let's see, Judge Napolitano. Judge Napolitano has some pretty good ideas, and I've listened to some of his stuff. I don't always agree with him. I haven't seen any of his. I haven't really spent time on his lectures. I have seen him on different programs. He's a lawyer, which means I think his natural bias is to precedent. Now, he's not. I'm not saying he's bad, but whenever I listen to him, I'm always stepping back and going, okay, what does the Constitution actually say? Because I know he went to law school, and I'm probably sure, since in the years I've been asking people this, when I asked lawyers if they studied the Constitution in law school, only once has someone said yes. Every other time they say, no, we studied constitutional law. They studied the opinion of other judges. So he tends to rely on the opinions of judges rather than the Constitution. But trust me, I've seen a lot worse. He's not bad. I like a lot of his stuff, but I always wonder when someone is more, when you look at the, when you're basing your decision on the commentary, not the actual words of the document. What if you got a bad commentary? So, all right. Cool. We got anything else? Anyone else got a question? Christopher, you pop back in. What do you got for me?
So one question that is curious. Do union laws supersede like labor laws, or how does that work?
Well, unions can't make laws. Unions are private organizations. A union, constitutionally, a union is no different than a Rotary Club. Right? The problem is the federal government plays favorites. They, in fact, I did an article a while back. There's actually a law in California that allows union representatives to trespass 3 times a day, 120 days a year, if you have an agricultural business. So labor law, federal labor law is unconstitutional. Many state labor laws are unconstitutional. Unions can't make laws. Now, unions sign contracts. And the problem you have is, or the problem as I see it is, you've got 2 parties to a contract, right? You've got the employer, and you've got the collective bargaining through a union, right? Now, justice is supposed to be blind. So you have the government coming in and saying, yeah, but we're going to place our thumb on the scale, and we're going to give more power to the unions because we all know that corporations are evil. That's what government says. At least that's what a lot of people in government says. So now you've got a government that says, well, even though those are our jobs, the business owns the job, not the employee. The employer owns the job, not the employee. So even though I have a legal right to make certain demands of my employees, and even though what I'm asking for is not unreasonable, and you know, even though I'm trying to apply what's best for the people who own this corporation, I don't trust that the government is going to actually adjudicate fairly. Why? Because they've already proven they're going to put their thumb on the scales, because they created a whole branch of the federal government, a whole, I should say, a whole department of the federal government whose primary purpose is to promote unions. It's called the Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor is less about labor, it's more about promoting unions. So you have businesses folding because they don't trust that the government would address their grievance fairly. Now, I don't have anything against unions per se. If a bunch of people say we can get a better deal if we join together and bargain collectively, excuse me, that's absolutely fine. But they don't. The problem I have is when government says that no, the union owns the job. The union gets to decide. The corporation is merely there to sign the paychecks. When a union, the other problem I have is there's a lot of states that require, if you want to work in certain businesses, if you want to work in certain industries, you're required to join a union. Say Hollywood. If you want to work in Hollywood, you have to be a member of the Screen Actors Guild. And California law, I believe, enforces that. You have no right to work in those states. Excuse me, trying to remember when government was given the authority to tell me I had to join a private organization and pay dues in order to work. Oh, do you know what? Do you know the other union? The Bar Association. Show me where in the Constitution does it say you have to join a private organization to practice law? Doesn't. So I think unions have, in many cases, shot themselves in the foot by overplaying their hand. But I don't have a problem with the idea of unions. I just see a lot of unions that are actually, they're actually become detrimental to their members. They actually are, in some cases, putting their members out of work. They're making it harder for people to get to get into jobs that they are eminently qualified for. But well, for example, you want to be a teacher, but you don't want to join the teachers union, but you got to pay the dues. You got to pay a fee to the teachers union, even though you aren't a member of the teachers union. And I always look and say, if unions are so great, you shouldn't have to force people to join them. That's always, that is my biggest hang-up. If your union is so great, nobody should be forced to join it. They should be begging to join it. And if people aren't begging to join your union, the problem is with the union. And you know, when government comes in and places its thumb on the scale, that bothers me. So, all right, where are we here? We got 22 after. I got a few more minutes. Anybody else got another question for me?
I do.
Well, shoot.
Okay, so I'm okay. So, back when like the Civil War was happening, it wasn't it wasn't illegal for the states to secede because that's like, you know, the 10th Amendment. But what I find interesting is you know, why bother starting the war at all? And like let's say the Emancipation Proclamation. I mean, was that even really legal? Was that a piece of legislation or was that an EO?
All right, so let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
The 10th Amendment, listen, there is no language in the Constitution that authorizes a state seceding from the Union. They have to break the agreement. Now, when you've got an agreement, the Constitution is a compact, it's an agreement between states. When you have any agreement under contract law, when you have any agreement among multiple parties, if one of the parties breaks the contract, they are removed and the remaining parties control what's left, right? So the Confederate States broke the compact, they broke their agreement and seceded from the Union. Now, again, we fought a war over whether or not we were going to let that happen. Now, why did they? That's always an interesting, that's actually can become an interesting debate. There's actually two reasons are usually given. All right, one is it was fought over slavery. The other is it was fought over state rights. The answer is, from what I've read in history, both. The Confederate States said we have a right to secede from this union because we want to keep slavery. And if you're going to make it illegal for us to keep slaves in this union, we want out. So the answer is twofold, right? So you have, yes, it's about states' rights, but the only state right they were fighting for at the time was slavery. But that brings up an interesting question. So if you are a slave in a state that was part of the Union, do you still have rights? Now, in some of the states, the answer was yes. Some of the states, the answer was no. But what does the Constitution say? Well, the Declaration says all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among those life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. Pursuit of happiness. So, if you are a slave in a state that is being denied your life, your liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, 3 rights that you got from God, you're being treated wrong. Now, there's a whole history of, we had slavery, and then we wanted unanimous agreement to the Constitution. So compromises were made, which is why slavery was not immediately eradicated. In fact, Congress could not pass a law changing the ability to import slaves for 20 years after the Constitution was signed. That was actually in the Constitution itself. In 1808, though, they could start restricting the slave trade. And so there was time. Problem is, politicians didn't want to get rid of slavery. At least there was enough of them to kind of hold things up. So now you're in this conundrum. You have a group of people who are being denied their rights as human beings, not simply their rights as U.S. citizens or citizens of one of the states, as human beings, an unalienable right endowed by their Creator. What do we do about it? Now, in the 20th century, we fought wars on other lands because their people were being denied unalienable, what we would consider an unalienable right. So the war between the states, the Civil War, there was a lot of dynamics to it. And I don't know a lot of people that know or that consider a lot of those dynamics. So I look at it and say, okay, you want to secede, but what about all the people you're denying their unalienable, their human rights? What about all the human rights abuses that you're allowing in those states? So that was all that thing. When it comes to the Emancipation Proclamation, it had no legal authority. It was an executive order that President Lincoln did not have the authority to sign. He simply said, yep, I proclaim this is true. Sorry, no, the Constitution doesn't delegate that to the President of the United States. Sorry, it's not one of the executive powers of the United States. So there's a lot in that Civil War. Now here's the scary part. If you look at so much of the rhetoric and so much of the debate and so much of the pundit class in this country, we are setting ourselves up for another civil war. This time, it's not going to be North versus South. It's going to be urban versus rural. And we are setting ourselves up for another civil war, possibly a race war, right? It could just as easily be a war between the races because we are instituting systemic racism in America. 1619 Project, critical race theory. We are literally have states saying we are going to indoctrinate your children with racism. We're going to indoctrinate them. We have companies that are indoctrinating their employees with racism. We have states that are indoctrinating their employees with racism. We are walking into this, and I don't think most Americans realize it. I don't think they quite understand that the animosity that's being driven between the two political parties is leading us to a civil war. So it could be urban versus rural. It could be race-based. It could simply be politically based. How far away are we when you have members of Congress calling for the disqualification of anybody who voted for Trump holding office? How far away from me are we from a political party-based civil war? I don't think we're that far at all. So, okay, we're at the bottom of the hour. Thanks everybody that was here. Those of you who could join me on Zoom, I love it. I love answering the questions via voice. That's a great thing. For those of you on YouTube and Periscope or who are watching this video, if you want to join the Zoom room, just go to constitutionstudy.com. You'll see the calendar, find the next event, it's, second and fourth Friday. Register for it and you'll get the links to join the Zoom room. Those of you on YouTube and Periscope, thank you for joining. I had a good time. I hope everyone here had a good time. I hope everyone has a safe, a happy, and a patriotic Memorial Day. Take some time, honor those who gave their lives that we could live free, and stand with them by protecting the freedoms and the rights of others. And join me again in a couple weeks. Bye, everyone.